Let's just start by closing our eyes, except for Mimi. Do not close your eyes, Mimi. Um, but let's close our eyes and let's start consciously breathing, putting our attention onto the breath. And preparing to really drop deep into learning and practicing. Today we're going to go deep into the healing power of empathy, which is so foundational to this work. And we can always go deeper and deeper into our ability to really feel with another and to allow others to feel with us. And each of you are going to have an opportunity today to give and to receive quality empathy from another. So I invite you as you breathe to really remember a time in your life when you felt really heard, really understood. And somebody wasn't trying to fix you or give you advice or make it better, but they just really were feeling with you. A specific time. As you remember time, how did your body feel healing? Did you experience it as a healing experience to be felt that way? I invite your gratitude, whatever it was that was so present with you. And now I invite you to remember a time that you really gave beautiful empathy, when you were very present with someone. Again, not trying to fix or change, but just really feeling with them. Remembering this time when you did that. As you remember that time, again, remember, how did that feel in your body? How did it feel in your consciousness? Did you feel that you were in an elevated state of love, an elevated state of compassion? Give yourself appreciation for the ability to do that. And today we're going to have an opportunity for you to practice giving and receiving, again, at very high levels. So feeling the beautiful heart inside of you, putting our mind aside and connecting to our heart. And I invite us all now to open our eyes. Maybe flip over to gallery view. You can see all of your course mates, all the beautiful souls. Welcome, Deborah. Welcome, Anaprabha, who just joined us. I'd love to open to anybody that had a significant remembrance, either a significant remembrance of giving empathy or of receiving. Laura. And then Mandy.
So my mom, she was beautifully, a woman, had 4 kids, very young, and she was a child, most of the time. But the one thing that she was so great at is whenever I was really upset about something, like I remember one time in 5th grade, my teacher quit teaching. He was my favorite teacher. And I just ran up to the car outside crying, and she just started crying with me. And I'll never forget that. And it was just, and it really taught me empathy in that moment. And whenever I would start crying, she would cry with me, and just, she was really in it with me. And I really think it helped me learn empathy.
What a beautiful quality. And there's something that comes to my mind as you share that she was still very young when she had children.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like she accessed that purity, that innocence, right?
Yeah.
And she wasn't trying to adult you and fix you, but she dropped into her remembrance of just that purity, of the kind of childlike sharing. That's a beautiful example. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mandy, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I had one actually on Thanksgiving Day. It was really cool. It's my first Thanksgiving without my younger sister. We were very close. She was my only sister, and she suddenly committed suicide back in May. And I had to plan her whole funeral, and my family and I were really worried about how much we were going to be in pain this Thanksgiving without her. And my mom had the brilliant idea to invite some of my sister's closest friends to our Thanksgiving lunch. And so we had a couple of her friends join us, like 3. And it was such an amazing, hole that they were able to fill for us in a way. Like, they filled that gap and distracted us a little from our pain. But there was this moment where I was sitting outside with 2 of the friends, and one of her friends made eye contact with me, and I was kind of having an emotional moment just sitting there to myself. And she's like, Mandy, you're looking a little emotional. Why don't you come sit next to me? And so I went over there and I sat next to her. And as soon as I did, I just started crying. And she knew why I was crying, because I was just missing my sister. And she just held me, and she's like, oh, it's okay. You can cry. And I understand how you feel. And I feel the same way. And she just held me and let me have that moment. And it was really special. So. You're muted, Scott.
Thanks. So with both examples, Mandy's and Laura's, I was on gallery view watching all of you. I could just see all of you feeling it with them, feeling that incredible, and that's why I call it the healing power of empathy. And it's a constant practice, because especially as coaches, there's such a desire to contribute to the well-being of others. And so often, and I still struggle with this after so many years, we want to jump in and we want to make it better. We want to fix it. And so learning to just be present and allow the sadness, to allow the discomfort, and to share it and to feel it with others, it's a gift. It's an incredible gift. And it's really like an art form to practice. Knowing when to really just be in the presence and the gift of empathy, and then when it's time to explore solutions or to explore alternatives, right? Did anybody else before we continue on, did anybody else have a significant? Candice, I am unmuting you, and
Hey,
we can
I'm
hear
hurt.
you. We can hear
Okay,
you and we can
great.
see you. And I
Thank
like the
you.
little smurf. I can see the little smurf.
He's helping me today. So over Thanksgiving, I got to see my younger 17-year-old sister for the first time in over 6 years at least. And I was dealing with some emotions. It's very normal for people to be perplexed by my blindness when we're in social atmospheres. And this is the first time she's been around me as a blind person, and at an age where she can conceptualize it. And I was having a really hard time with the way my mom was treating me. My mom was trying to really take care of Megan, and I just kind of got lost in the wind. And I saw my sister really felt that. And I got a moment at the table where my mom stepped away to the bathroom, and I shared with my sister what was going on, because I could tell she was really curious and she was hurting. She didn't know what to do, And I said, I just want to let you know I'm okay. I was just really struggling with mom in that moment, and all the energy. And she's like, I understand. I saw she wasn't listening, and I was like, oh my God, like, especially like not seeing each other for so long. And I experienced and I witnessed so many people try so hard to empathize with me and be flustered because they don't know what I can see and can't see. It's a fucking foreign experience. And for this 17-year-old girl to, like, especially around my mom, it was really nice to be seen in my struggles with her.
Thank you, Candice. It's all Twinkle Candice and also Twinkling Laura and Mandy. Thank you for your beautiful sharings. And what's interesting, although all of you were coaches or healers, all three actually chose examples of receiving empathy. Isn't that interesting that that's what has been standing out so far, is the gift of receiving empathy? Anybody else have a share that they really want to provide? Deborah. And then Anuprabha, and then we'll move on. Yes.
Oh, there. Okay. Yeah, I've been really practicing giving empathy and really going the extra mile to realize if anybody's been in pain or fear or judgment around me, or, if I said the wrong word or did the wrong thing or something or this or other, having the empathy to realize, wow, somewhere they're hurting or something's going on, and stepping forward to just give more of the love, to show up and not be afraid. Because usually I'll recoil and be afraid, like, oh, I'm being judged and oh my gosh, I'm scared. I don't want to be, because my fear is abandonment or judgment or rejection.
Yeah.
So stepping forward towards people and realizing I have total empathy. Just like me, I've done that same thing.
Beautiful.
I could do that if I'm afraid. And that I choose to love that person, and I choose to find new bridges of empathy and compassion. So I did that with a friend at Thanksgiving, and I've done that in the past with my younger brother, and just realizing I want to be the change that I wish to find.
Beautiful. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you very much. That's Twinkle Deborah. And, those three words are wonderful words, just like me, right? When we are in judgment of someone or someone's, agitating us, wow. As my mother used to say, but for the grace of God, there go I, right? And just remember, just like me, we are all capable of any human experience. So thank you for sharing that. Anuprabha.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Yeah, what came through when you had said people hadn't given experience of giving empathy. So that's kind of what came up for me. However, I just want to say, with this training, I think really when I started it, it was really the first time to really, what a big difference it made in my life, experiencing empathy. And I think I really didn't ever really get that I don't know, maybe it's weird, but the word deserve comes up, deserved empathy. Interesting, because just growing up in my family structure, it's just like, you get on with it. You don't say how you feel. You stuff anything uncomfortable. You're just strong. You're just out there. You're strong. You survive. You keep on going. Sharing feelings was really, just a really dangerous, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So, you know, it really took all these years, not that I haven't been in situations, of course, with people with them, but to really understand, yes, this is a quality that is really important in life. Like this is food. This is food.
Yeah.
This is what this is sustenance, you know, we need, you know, so that's just made me a better human, you know, on the planet, right?
Thank you.
So, I mean, I think I'll stop with that because.
Yeah, that's
Right?
beautiful share,
Yeah.
though. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Twinkling for
Yeah.
Anaprabha. Thank you.
Yeah.
And welcome, Debbie Garcia, who's joined us. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go through a slideshow that Emily and I created for our Relationship Essentials course. So for Laura and Adrian and Anaprabha, you'll be seeing this again. But this is a slideshow that as coaches, you all, you know, I'll post it so you guys can save it. And it's a great thing for you to share with others. And I'm going to go through pretty quickly, but we're going to go into, as we look through it, we look at all the things that empathy is and isn't, all right? And I'm going to try and go through it fairly quickly, but I'll come back periodically for us to talk about what comes up. And then we're going to spend the majority of today actually breaking you up into small practice groups. Laura, Adrian, Anaprabha, I'm going to ask you to be pod leaders. And we're going to practice, all right? So here we go into the healing power of empathy. Everybody able to see that okay? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. So why do we resist giving empathy? And you know, Anaprabha was kind of talking about the resistance to receiving empathy, which we're going to get into. That's the next slide. But these are like the common things that happen where people struggle to give empathy. It's uncomfortable. The first one is probably the biggest one, is that when somebody else is having uncomfortable feelings, we don't like it. It's not, you know, it's not fun, right? And so learning to manage your discomfort with the other person's discomfort is very important. This is especially true for men. Men are more quick to want to go in to fix it because men, generally speaking, have spent less time allowing themselves to have uncomfortable feelings. Another one, of course, it's not okay to be vulnerable. You don't want to be seen as weak or shamed or rejected. There's the fear of not doing it right. And I really want to say, especially today, as you're giving and receiving, there is no right or wrong, right? We're leaving the world of right and wrong. What we're going to do is we're going to practice giving and receiving. And then, you know, the people receiving, we're going to say, wow, this is where I felt really especially connected. And maybe if it went into fixing, or, you know, if we slip and we fall into fixing or trying to make it better, we just are learning. Okay, there's no right or wrong. No judgment here. We're in a judgment-free zone. The next one's a big one. The fear of enabling kind of the victim story or empowering more pain. And that's a balance. It is true that sometimes there are people in our life that will play victim to get their needs met. And we don't want to enable that. And that's a tricky one. That's hard when we're working with somebody like that, because of course we always want to give empathy first, but we also don't want to feed the victim monster. And so I just want to acknowledge that's a very real challenge. Fear of losing ourselves. We have fear of engulfment. If I really feel you too deeply, especially those of you that are naturally empathic, those of you that are earth angels and naturally empathic, there's the fear of getting lost in the other person's pain. Especially any of you who as children were the one that felt the pain of your family. You know, right now, stop the screen share for a moment. Right now I'm working with a couple of families where their kids are acting out all the pain that mom and dad have with each other. And it's been sobering for me to point out, you know, little Johnny, his anger problem is that he's feeling the anger both of you have towards each other that you're not expressing. And so as they've been communicating more compassionately and really connecting, guess what? Johnny's not acting out as much. Well, likewise, I'm guessing that many of you as children were the ones who felt the pain of your family. You know, you're all like healers and earth angels and caretakers. And then you had to reach a point where you had to learn how to set boundaries so you weren't engulfed by the pain that you were feeling around you. Just by raise of hands, who relates to that? Who feels connected to that? Yeah, most of you, which makes sense. That's why I wanted to bring this up. So learning how to not get engulfed. And so oftentimes, hopefully we learn how to be fully present with someone and then let it go when we disconnect, right? Being fully present, but then not carrying, not taking on their pain and not feeling the need to carry the pain after the experience. I'm just curious, who feels like you still struggle with that? Who still struggles with that? Okay. And who feels like you come up with a pretty good way of disengaging? Adrian. Adrian, would you be willing to share kind of how you do that, how you manage that?
Gosh, how do I do it? How could I explain? Well, I think one important distinction actually, Scott, is because you talk about disengaging after the fact, and I feel that actually we can be fully present and embodied in empathy, being with somebody without taking on the other person's, let's say, emotion in the process of giving empathy. And that's a subtle reality, actually being with someone, fully empathizing, being with their experience and not taking it on even in the process. So that disengaging after the fact isn't even really necessary. And I feel like we could talk about that at some length. You know, what is empathy? And what are the various flavors and spectrums of empathy? How can we be fully with? You know, how would Jesus be fully with someone who's in excruciating pain? Would he actually feel like, obviously the feeling of the pain would be there, but there wouldn't be the same level of, say, discomfort or misery, but there'd be full-on connection. And I feel like the big reason why I have my relationship with this is my meditation practice, which would be hard to get into right now. So yeah, I guess in answering your question, like how do I disengage? One thing that I really work with is that balance of really being with and being centered in my equanimity, being centered in my embodied whole self while being fully connected with what the other person is experiencing. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, Scott, but I think it speaks to kind of a nuance of empathy. And I feel like being fully embodied in empathy while not getting overrun is a lifelong practice, actually.
Yeah. I really like what you said a lot. And it's true. There is, while we're in the process, not taking it into our system in a way that's inappropriate or unhealthy or unnecessary, really. And it is a balance of really feeling with that person without taking it on, right? And it's like you said, it's a lifelong practice of learning how to do that. And then also at the end, you know, for some people, just like shaking it off, you know, like,
Sure.
you know, just shaking it off. So I think, thank you for pointing out, it's a practice while we're in it, and then there's a practice when it's over. I think I saw somebody else raise their hand. Deborah.
You know, I notice I can be detached professionally, like if I'm coaching or with certain people because of meditation, definitely also learning psychic protection techniques from my spiritual teacher. So being really aware of being grounded in myself and, you know, different methods. I mean, I had ones with the Ascended Masters a long time ago. Now I kind of anchor with the Great Central Sun and send a grounding cord into the earth and realize that I'm going to be the most amount of help if I stay in a conscious presence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know how to do that. I know that skill. And then if I'm more emotionally bonded to someone as a friend or someone where I really care about them and something happens, I'm a little more sensitive. And I'm working on that, where I, as I said before, where if I can stay in my spiritual presence and bring more love and empathy to the situation, then I can be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. So what I'm really hearing is, again, part of your practice is really remaining in yourself and in that kind of more divine alignment, higher consciousness. And I guess a way of
Right.
saying that is for us to be in our most centered self while being present, as opposed to kind of jumping into the pit with the person.
Yeah,
Right?
don't sink in the pit with them. It doesn't
Right.
help anybody. I want it because I know my mission is to be, you know, as spiritual and peaceful in the equanimity as possible.
Right.
So daily practice is so important for me.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Adrian has something to add.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I guess just to add, in terms of like describing my own process, I have a strong relationship with being in touch with my sensations. And I think it's unrealistic that most of us are not going to walk away from a strong session of empathy and not be influenced, not take on something. So my own practice is a strong connection with being aware of my sensations and cultivating equanimity with that experience, and along with my relationship with breath. So after a significant session of being with somebody, certainly doing that throughout the session, being connected and embodied and aware of like what's mine and what's theirs, which and then a practice afterwards of just tuning into that, being with myself, being with my sensations, is my primary practice. I could talk at greater length about that, but yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate all of your shares. Allison, and then I want to get back to the slides because we've got a lot to do, but Allison.
I'll be brief. I was really struck with an image as I was listening to both Adrian and Deborah, and I appreciate both of your shares. Thank you so much. It's teaching me a lot. I think that when you go into a space where you're listening and fully empathetic with someone, it's almost like going into a room that you can close and make safe for yourself and that person. And then I think it's important that we have rituals for arriving into that space and also rituals for leave taking. So creating a place where this is the sacred space where everybody is able to express what's truly alive in them in a very deep way. And noticing how you are as you come into that space, setting your intention for being in that space, but also then sometimes inside that room, there's a lot that's shared that's very, very intense. And for me, when I finish listening to someone deeply that way, I tend to be kind of a method actor. So I tend to take on a lot of the stuff that happens. And I don't mean acting. I mean like really method, like being with that person. So for me, what's helpful is that I actually have a sort of a ritual with myself of wishing them healing, wishing them growth, and also stepping away and physically thinking of going in out of that room, closing the door, blessing what's happened in there, and then arriving into another space that is just for me. And I find that image very helpful. I hope it's helpful to others, and I'm going to be quiet now so we can keep going.
That was beautiful. Big twinkle, Allison. It was really, I love that idea of entering the room energetically, creating the safety of the room. That's beautiful, beautiful imagery. You know, I just am so reminded of each and every one of you has wisdom and so much to share. And if you don't get a chance sometimes to share verbally, like Allison and Adrian and Deborah did today, please pop it in the chat box. I see that Anna Prabha has put something in the chat box. The chat box is another great place for you to put thoughts, wisdom, shares. And I just honor each and every one of you as magnificent beings. We are going to get back to the slideshow for a minute here. So let's take a look now at what comes up when we have resistance to receiving empathy. And I'm not going to read all of these things, but often, it's so much easier, especially for those of us who are caregivers and love to give, receiving empathy. It's like, it's hard to receive, you know? Maybe it's because we really like, I know for myself, I really like being in the role of the coach and the teacher. I'm happiest when I'm in love coach Scott mode, and I'm most uncomfortable when I'm in vulnerable Scott mode. And so just getting out of that kind of teacher coach place and really being vulnerable is certainly challenging for me. Might be challenging for some of you. Another one is you don't really want empathy. You want something else. You want the other person to change, or you want them to apologize, or you want them to, you want to get your way. And I know that has come up for me. With Emily, there were some times where I realized, no, I don't want empathy. I want her to change. So that's the thing that we have to recognize, is when we're really not just like empathy first giving, also empathy first receiving, before we get to that solution, or that, I want something else from you. I want you to change. So that's a couple of classic ones. Are there also sometimes, the last one here, the fear that another person's using empathy to manipulate us? I hear that a lot from people, that, they're afraid that someone's using compassionate communication in a manipulative way. So just want to be brief, but do any of those come up for anybody? Anybody notice that? Mimi, and you want to share what came up for you, Mimi?
Yeah, I was actually involved with another course for a while. Yeah, that's kind of close. And I had some things that weren't working for the course, so I went to call in about, like, calling them out and saying, I'm feeling this stuff and I'd like it addressed. And they're like, and they didn't get back to me. And then, like, it was a course that I had paid for. And then, like, 3 days later, I was like, so what's going on? And they're like, it seems like you're really challenged about people not calling you back. And I was like, yeah, I am pretty challenged about people not calling me back. They're like, do you want to talk about that? And I was like, I want my money back. That's what I want. So like, it's the, sometimes I really do want some results.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel angry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great example. That's a great example. Oh,
Okay.
Thank you, Mimi. It's funny, and it's classic. It's kind of like, yep. Anybody else? Anything come up as you looked at that? Candice waving her arms wildly. I am unmuting you. Hang on one second, hon. Hang on. I gotta go back to gallery view before I can unmute you. Hold on. Oh, please, please, please. It's so funny. Sometimes it lets me unmute and it's not doing it again. Doggone it. Oh, hold on. Hang on a second. I can do it this way. Okay.
I do it? I think we did it.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So this is a wound that's still present. I put myself out there a lot, and my blind needs, and I never thought people would take advantage of me, but I've experienced, sadly, that there is that, and people reached out to me and would come over and hold empathetic space and help me, and they also stole my money from my wallet and did it repetitively because they knew they could get away with it, and I couldn't see it, and all I saw was their empathy. And I've never experienced that in 8 years of running a temple and experiencing in San Diego. And yeah, it was clear manipulation tactics with a conscious decision to take advantage of me.
Wow. Let's all as a group take a minute to feel the sadness of that, to feel the horror of thinking that someone is really being present and loving you and giving you empathy, and then to discover that they stole from you. And for that to happen repeatedly, and then to just create this like mistrust, not being able to trust, and especially literally being physically blind.
Like I have no other choice than to receive help, and so cultivating trust has been a big thing to me. And yeah, I'm blaming San Diego at this point. I have work to do.
Just all feeling you, Candice.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to give Candice some empathy or some understanding? Mandy. You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Candice, my heart just went out to you so deeply, and I felt this deep sadness in my soul. And I understand that travesty of just, I mean, how low could somebody be to steal, you know, in your tender situation and your vulnerability, and to violate your trust like that. And it's like when you're in that position, you want to be able to trust others because you're so vulnerable. And I get that, and my heart just goes out to you. And I'm so sorry that other human beings took advantage of you. I'm just so sorry.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Candice. And I think all of us are really feeling it with you. You can't see people, but I'm just looking at everyone's face. There's a lot of people really feeling you right now. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. All right. I'm going to go back to the slideshow. And the next thing we're going to look at is, you know, we talked earlier about not falling into the pit with people. And I love this little slide because it shows kind of the three, again, I'm going to come back to myself for a second to say it. There's like everything in a world, we live in a planet of polarity, so there's always kind of like a field, right? So one end, the field would be sympathy or pity. Oh, you poor, pathetic being. Oh my God. And pity is not pleasant to give or to receive. And at the far end of on the other end of the field is apathy. Whatever, I don't care. So we don't want to be in apathy of I don't care. We don't want to be in sympathy or pity. But in the middle, where they meet in the middle is in our heart, empathy, where we're in it. We're sharing it with the other person. We're feeling them in our heart. And so going back to this slide, what it demonstrates is another way of kind of saying what I just talked about. You know, there's apathy, and you can see little dude is like completely disconnected. There's sympathy, where the dude jumps into the pit with that person. But then in the middle is empathy, where he still has one foot, you know, grounded, and he's reaching out, right? So this is just two different ways of saying the same thing. We want to be in empathy, which is in between apathy and sympathy. I'm going to go through this one real quickly, and I got this from Jason Gaddis, who's a relationship coach. And it's an acronym, no fracking. So we're going to take a look at what empathy is not, what we don't want to do. And these are common pitfalls that we fall into. So it's fracking. So F stands for fixing. No one's broken. We don't want to fix somebody. All right? No fixing. R stands for rescuing. And this is a big one that I've always had to work with, being born on Christmas Day, having a Messiah complex. Superman was always my favorite superhero. And so there is a part of us that wants to rescue someone, but it's kind of a fantasy. And recognize that actually we can be most heroic by giving the gift of our presence. So again, no fracking, no fixing, no rescuing. And the next one, letter A, is no advice giving. People want to be understood. They want to be heard. They don't always want advice. I know that there are people, recently it was kind of a hard few days for me. This particular Thanksgiving, it brings back memories of my wife dying on Thanksgiving. And there was a friend that I'm staying with who, honestly, she just wanted to keep giving advice. And I ended up just wanting to be by myself. Because God bless her, her care, wherever she's giving care is to give advice, and that's not really what I wanted. So no advice giving. Again, we're on fracking. F, no fixing. R, no rescuing. A, no advice giving. And C stands for no complaining. Sometimes when somebody is going on and on and on, we get frustrated. And then we kind of go into victim and we start complaining about their discomfort. So that's where, if you can't manage it, if you need to take space, set a boundary and do it with compassion. No killing their experience. What's that mean? It's when we deny another person's reality. When somebody, even if someone's hallucinating, even if the experience they're having, they're in reaction to something that's not real, in kind of a observable physical way, we still acknowledge their pain. But when we deny another person's reality, it's like the worst thing we can do. So that's the fracking. So again, no fixing, rescuing, advice giving, complaining, or killing your experience. Mandy, I see you raising your hand.
Are you going to send us those papers so we can print them and look at them?
Yeah. I'll put this in both the Facebook private messenger group and also our Facebook group.
And I had one other thing. If somebody is paying you to be a love coach, how do you not give advice? You just have to define which moments people just need empathy so that you can relate before giving advice? Like, how do you know
Absolutely.
the line?
Well, you know what? Oftentimes I actually will ask somebody, do you want empathy? Do you want advice? Or do you want both? Just ask. And look, I spend all day making my living coaching. And I probably ask that question frequently. So you can just ask. And as Adrian, brought to the Love Coach Academy a few years ago, empathy first. It's always better to lead with empathy. But certainly if you're getting paid and you're coaching, and even if you're not getting paid, if it's just with a friend, you can always ask, what do you want right now? Can I give you some empathy? Do you want to hear my opinion or advice, or would you like both? If they say both, always lead with empathy, because empathy is how we create the quality of connection, and then they can take in whatever perspective or advice we may want to offer. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay. Anything else come up as you were looking at the fracking? Anything come up for anybody? Anaprabha.
Yeah, the killing their experience, like to not deny, or tell the other person that their experience is not valid or real, right? And I had a recent experience around that with a member of the male species. I'm just telling you like an experience, and it was really triggering for them. And instead of just really hearing that experience and listening to it, they kind of definitely wanted to not get there. There was anger. The male really got angry around even me kind of being vulnerable. So I kind of felt like there was a shaming. I mean, couldn't even say that because that would be a trigger for that person, And it just reminds me just how delicate this work is, because if people, are, really haven't done it or aren't used to expressing their feelings or hearing other people express their feelings and sharing, it's really delicate, and it's triggering for other people to really expose maybe how they're feeling deeply. And so it just reminding me again of just going in really gently, and even if we're like sharing just feelings, that it is triggering for others. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's powerful.
You know what happened? Twinkling for Anaprabha, and twinkling for everybody who shared. I don't always remember to twinkle. What Anaprabha is bringing up about the killing of the experience, it's especially common, to be honest, with men. Men, again, generally speaking, struggle with being in the feeling space and then want to jump to fixing, right? And I mentioned it before, but I want to say it again, because here's what's common. Often, people are in reaction to a misinterpretation. And it's a tricky one because, of course, we want to get straight to, oh, no, that's not what I meant, or that's not what I said, right? Which is true. But if we bypass the discomfort, so let's say, I'll just work with Anaprabha for a moment. Let's just say that Anaprabha and I are having a conversation, and I say something that she hears as a judgment of her. And I genuinely didn't mean it as a judgment. But she goes into pain, and it triggers her pain around authority figures and being judged, all of that. I'm going to be so tempted to say, no, I wasn't judging you. I didn't mean that. But ideally, I acknowledge her pain first. It's like, oh, Anaprabha, I hear you heard that as a judgment. And I can totally imagine that if you thought I was judging you, that's really uncomfortable. It's really painful. It's not what I meant, but I want to just be present. Is that what was going on for you? See, I'm giving her the chance. I'm letting her know that's not what I meant, but I'm also giving her the chance to say, yes, God, I don't want to be judged by you. And sometimes I feel like I'm being judged. I don't know if that's what you mean or not, but it feels really awful. And then I feel like I can just be present with that for a while. And it's hard because I want to fix it. I want to make it better. I want to, I don't want her to think that that's what's going on, right? But if I can just slow down and allow myself to manage my discomfort with her discomfort as a reaction to me, right? And it's really hard. It's really, really hard, right? And then here's where it gets even harder. What if I was being judgmental, right? What if there was a tone of judgment there? What if I did cross the line and I was being judgmental? Now my ego is really racing to the forefront, wanting to deny it, wanting to fix it, because it's so uncomfortable for me to have to acknowledge, oh shit, I was being judgmental with someone who my opinion really matters to. And now she's hurting because of what I did. And so really learning to manage our discomfort when we've made a choice that has a hurtful consequence on somebody we care about. And our ego is going to want to come in and either deny it or diminish it. We call it the 6 Ds. Deny it, diminish it, deflect it, distract away from it, dominate. All those ways to avoid taking responsibility for what I said or did and how it impacted you. And it is like the hardest thing in relationship is to own and acknowledge when we make a choice that has a hurtful consequence on another person. And that's when we most often will kill their experience because we can't face the consequences of our own choice. Does it make sense to everybody? Yeah, and we've all been on that. Adrian, is that raising your hand you wanted to share? Or? Yeah.
Yeah, so many things I could share. I wanted to share something else, but specifically to this, actually, I find the opposite is true. I'm more likely to kill or have the impulse to kill if they're misinterpreting. No, that's not what happened. And justify, this actually happened. See it the way the reality is, as opposed to going into empathy first. Whereas if actually I was an asshole, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I totally was that. I'm sorry. Personally speaking, I have much more impulse to kill when they're misinterpreting.
Right.
But I did the dishes and my roommate came in and they made the mess. And you're judging me because you thought that I didn't do the dishes, as opposed to giving empathy first. Oh, you're really pissed off because the dishes aren't done. I can see how you're frustrated you are. But actually, I actually cleaned the kitchen. It was our roommate. That's a good example I use all the time of that, like, really concrete reality of clear misinterpretation. Yeah, anyways.
Thank you. Yeah. Laura.
Mine's going to be really fast, but many years ago, for about 10 years, I was a student of the Course in Miracles, and it was so hard at the time to understand this, but that they always reiterated in the Course in Miracles that defense was the first act of war. And I think that applies to all that everyone's been talking about, and especially what you're saying, Scott, is even within ourselves, that whole, oh my God, I was judgmental, and even that defense, right? And I just noticed that sometimes if Rob's having a hard time with my feelings, I notice that I want to be like, but you don't know what I need in this moment. And I'm so grateful to give myself that dose of empathy myself, so that I don't have to go into any defense. But it's not easy, and it's definitely a practice.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And what Laura just pointed out, and actually I'm surprised we haven't said it yet today, as Marshall Rosenberg taught us, the most important form of empathy is self-empathy. Right? It's the most important form of empathy. Learning how to give ourselves, as Marshall would call it, an emergency dose of self-empathy. Wow, that hurt. What am I feeling? What am I needing? I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling scared. I'm really needing reassurance. I'm needing safety. Whatever it is, learning how to give ourselves the emergency dose of self-empathy. I'm going to complete the slideshow pretty quickly because we're going to look at the different forms of empathy. Then we'll take our short break, and then we're going to spend the second hour, or what's left of the hour, in practice groups, small little practice groups, giving and receiving. So we go back to. So now we get to look at the different forms of empathy, right? And these are the different forms that I've kind of identified. Self-empathy, the most important empathy of all. And again, just, okay, what's alive in me? What am I feeling? What am I needing? And then before we give empathy to someone else, making sure that our empathy well is full. We got to have enough in our gas tank to be able to give to others. And if we're completely depleted in empathy, we can't do it. And so that's why self-care is so incredibly important. It's so important for us to fill our own well so that we've got enough to give to others. So the kind of classic nonviolent communication and VC form of communication is reflecting back feelings and needs. Really either imagining or guessing what they might be feeling and needing, or if they said it, just reflecting back. So I'm really hearing you feel sad and scared. And well, we did that a little bit with Candice, right? Mandy imagined what she was feeling and needing. I imagined what she was feeling and needing. So reflecting back feelings and needs is kind of a standard classic form of giving empathy. A second way of doing it is weaving our story with the other. And this is a good way of doing it as long as you don't steal the thunder. In other words, what can work is if you've had a similar experience, you briefly reference, wow, that happened to me once. I trusted somebody. I wasn't blind, but I trusted someone. And when I wasn't looking, they stole money from me. Tell me more about how you're feeling. So we just acknowledge the similar experience. What we don't do is go, you think that's bad? Let me tell you how my business partner stole $100,000 from me. And then you go off and, you don't go into comparison, and you don't go into how yours was worse, and you don't go off on your story. You just briefly mention a similar experience, and then you bring it right back to that person. Right? So that's why we call it weaving my story with yours, right? We're weaving it together. But then can we find common feelings, common unmet needs? And so we create empathy through the commonality of our shared experience. Does it make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay. Then kind of the last primary form of empathy is embodied empathy. And I love the image of the little child with the bear, where we just really so slow down and we really drop in and we feel it with them. What feelings and what sensations? There's feelings, which are emotions, and then there's sensations in the body. The lump in the throat, the heartbeat pounding, the sick feeling in the pit of our stomach. Those are some of the sensations that go along with some of the uncomfortable feelings that might happen. And so in embodied empathy, we really are feeling it with them. And this is where, again, kind of what we talked about earlier comes in. Setting clear boundaries and finding your own balance. A lot of what Adrienne talked about earlier, of finding that balance of being present and feeling with them without taking it on. And that's where each of you really have to explore, when are you taking on somebody else's energy? To what degree can you feel it with them and then not have it take you out or engulf you? And it's a constant practice. I choose to pretty much feel with most people, but there are some people I've learned it's not so safe to feel with. There are some people, what I'm about to say is a judgment. There are some people that are energy vampires that will hook into us and pull on our energy in order to be felt or loved. And that's kind of a judgmental way of looking at it. It's something that I've kind of come to believe. And so with someone that I've come to the evaluation on it, it's a judgment, that they're an energy vampire, I set more clear boundaries. Whereas people that are more like all of you, I'm more, willing to just really drop in with you, because most of you receiving empathy is not as common as giving and being a caretaker, a healer. So does it make sense to everybody? So everybody understands the 3 different forms, and you're going to get to choose which form of empathy you want to give or receive. Let's just take a quick 5-minute break, and I'm going to create, while you're doing that, I'll create the practice groups.
Hold on a second. Scott, can you just, 3 different forms?
Right, so there's, again, we saw the 3 different forms of giving empathy. There's reflecting back feelings and needs, that's number 1. There's weaving my story with yours, is number 2. And there's embodied empathy, just, kind of like, as we talked about, creating that container to really go into the room, go into that container and really feel the person, allowing yourself to feel their sensations, asking what sensations are going on, as well as their feelings and needs. So it's a more of an embodied, somatic approch to the empathy.
I'm asking because it seemed like you were going into instructions for future practice specifically, or you just were highlighting that last slide.
Yeah, just highlighting those 3. But when you guys do go into your practice groups, and you and Anaprabha and Laura will be leading them, and I'll be into my class too. People can choose, okay, I want to try number 2, or I want to try weaving my story with yours, or I want to try embodied empathy. So
all 3 can happen at the same time. So I'm wondering if you're actually encouraging people just to be mindful of like where they're directing their awareness, or
Yeah, great question. And yes, absolutely, all three can happen at all times. Um, so I want to encourage that when you're giving empathy, get clear on if you're practicing number one or number two or number three or some combination. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's a practice. It's a practice. Okay. And for our pod leaders, just keep an eye out to see if it's going into any form of fracking, even if it's subtle, right? And if it does, again, we're not making the person wrong, but it's just pointing out, oh, wow, you know, it feels like you might be going a little bit into fracking right now. Okay.
And the way my mind works in terms of organization, would you like feedback to happen real time or at the end or?
Good question. I'd like for the feedback to be primarily the person who was receiving, sharing when they felt most connected. Like, when did they feel most connected? And was there any time where they lost connection, right? Again, there's no right or wrong, but the purpose is to connect. So for the person receiving to, after they receive from each person, to share, this is when I felt the most connected. And if there was a moment where you lost connection or didn't feel so connected, to point that out. Does it make sense to everybody? Again, no right or wrong, it's a practice. So it's 11:03 California time. Let's all be back at 11:08 after you have your bathroom break.
Yeah, that question, I'm still in this mode of the training I'm doing. So that question I just asked is kind of specific to that in terms of feedback, because we've been doing these exercises, we're doing similar practices, but we're giving feedback in real time. And as a pod leader, I'm just trying to get clear on where my responsibilities are in terms of holding space, directing. So my question was more like, am I actually giving feedback of like, oh, you're practicing.
You're off mute. You're off mute.
So
you're off mute.
Okay, 1 minute to coming back, please.
Hey, Scott, it's Daniel.
Hey, Daniel, welcome. Glad you're back with us.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just in the airport waiting for my plane, so I'm going to be just listening, and I won't even have the video on. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then let me switch. I'm going to switch, make a change. I'll put you in kind of my breakout group, and I'll put somebody else in with
Yeah.
Adrian. Let's see.
Sounds like a fascinating. I just tuned in. Sounds like a fascinating class today.
Yeah. Okay, and oh, I had you in breakout room 2. Okay, so I'll move Michaela over to breakout room 2, and move to. All right, I'm gonna add a room. All right, so Daniel, when it comes time to click join rooms, just don't click.
Okay.
I'm going to keep you in the main room with myself. Okay.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. So here's what's going to happen. Yes, Adrian. You're muted. Adrian, you're muted. I can't hear you.
I just want to say something relatively briefly before we go into the groups. So now or after you explain your process.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to have 4 groups. I'm going to lead one group. Adrian, Laura, and Anaprabha will be leading the other groups, and there'll be a total of 4 people, or approximately 4 people in each group. Laura, since you have Rob with you, I'm putting the other couple, Jason and Hannah, with you, so you'll be the couples group. And what I want us to do is we're going to have 30 minutes to do these practices. And so I want everybody, including the group leaders, to have a chance to give and to receive. So figure approximately, and by the way, the way we'll do it is one person shares what they want to receive empathy for, keep it to like a minute, 90 seconds max, and then all 3 members of the group take turns giving empathy. So for example, let me take a look at the breakout groups. So for example, in Anaprabha's group, let's say Candice goes first, then Anaprabha, Mimi, and Michaela will all give empathy to Candice. And then Candice kind of reflects how she felt most connected, any places where she felt less connected. Again, no right or wrong, just so we learn. And then maybe Mimi goes next. And then maybe Anaprabha goes next, and then Michaela goes. So each person gets a chance. And so figure with 4 people, try and keep it to about 6 minutes total, which means 1 or 2 minutes max to share the story, and then 1 minute each to give empathy. Okay, does it make sense to everybody?
Do you want us, the people giving empathy, to kind of focus on one of the 3? Like we talked about that, just to clarify, on either relating it back to ourselves or embodied or using feelings and needs?
Whatever you think would be your greatest growth. Okay. Whatever, again, it's a practice. So if you really struggle with something, pick the one that you struggle with. If you struggle with embodied empathy, pick that one. If you want to try practicing all 3, do all 3. Whatever. I would just encourage people to choose something that's challenging for you. Okay, choose something that's challenging. I will send a note after when we're at 30 minutes, letting you guys know that I'm about to bring you back. And I'll actually give a 5-minute warning so that you guys, but pod leaders, try and keep track of the time. Okay, and then we'll all come back and we'll all share kind of what we learned and grew and all of that. Any other thoughts, questions? Yes, Adrian.
Gosh, I hope I'm choosing the right time to say this, and I'll try and keep it brief, but I feel like I've kind of come to some clarity around something I've been grappling with for a long time around staying embodied, taking on, feeling diminished, needing to ground out after the fact, after being with somebody. And I feel like I've come to some clarity I can express pretty clearly. And it's about, so I feel like empathy, a couple synonyms of empathy are compassion and love. And I feel like we can really be with someone's pain. And in the context of giving empathy and compassion and love, even though we're with someone's pain, fully experiencing it in empathy, we're cultivating so much compassion and love that we can leave a session more energized because of that, our capacity to really be in that. And I feel like this is speaking to how much of a spiritual practice this is, to actually be with someone's pain and be with it and be cultivating so much compassion and love where we leave more filled than depleted. Obviously requires, you know, relationship to that capacity to cultivate love and compassion, but I think both are possible. And that's kind of a subtle crux, and I feel like that's maybe harder for people who are true empaths, where they just are so in someone else's pain, where they're more in that pain body experience compared to and not so much connected to like the love and compassion in the connection with the empathy. And that's why, like, when I was saying earlier how deep this practice is, to really be centered in yourself in the context of being with somebody else. So I guess I'm having some clear realization around the subtlety of that, but I feel like it's very important because I think it can be so easy, especially for those of us who are first going into it, where we want to, like, it's almost like our ledger of empathy is how much pain we feel with them, and we leave so much, and you know, it's like, and both can happen. And that's why I like kind of using the analogy of the Jesus or the Buddha. Like, how are they giving empathy?
Yeah, so beautiful. And if I could give it a synopsis, what I'm hearing is give love, don't add to the pain. Feel the pain.
Yeah.
And bring love into the field as opposed to magnification of the pain.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. And where we can fall into magnification is if we go into collusion. Oh, you're right. He's such an asshole. He's a real asshole, and you got really victimized. Well, that's colluding with the pain as opposed to just being with the pain and bringing love into the field. That's why, again, keeping, remember that image of the guy, he's got one foot on the other side. Yeah. That foot is being centered, being anchored into our higher self, our God self.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to go into our practice groups. So everybody click join, except a few of you, the ones that are going to be in my room. And I'm unmuting you, Candice.
Okay.
And just be aware you're unmuted, but your group will be able to hear you the whole time. And I'm bringing in my group, you're just going to stay in the main room with me. And I think it's Debbie Garcia, and I forget who I kept. But anyway, so if you see click join, and if not, then you're going to just be in the room with me. And here we go. We're opening all the rooms. And so click join. Daniel and Debbie Garcia and Deborah Haviland, I think, are the ones that I'm keeping with me. Yeah. The two Debbies. Aaron, you need to click join. You need to join the room that you're in. And Jason and Hannah, you need to click join room. So there should be, there you go. Aaron, you can do it, Aaron.
I'm not seeing the notification. How do I get in the room?
You should be receiving a notification.
It's usually like bottom right or something, a little thing that will say, if you really look in your whole screen, it maybe could be bottom.
Oh, there we go. Just popped up. Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully Hang on one second. I just want to make sure that he got in there okay. Oh, I guess I'll hear otherwise if not. All right. And Daniel, are you is it just like super loud where you are, so that's why you can't turn on your camera and your microphone? Yeah, okay. All right, hello, Debbie and Debbie.
Debbie and Debbie, I love that.
Debbie and Deborah. All right, which of you would like to receive empathy first? Which of you would like to receive? Okay.
I have something very real, and it's not what we've talked about before.
Okay.
It's yeah, it's funny because it came out of I'm seeing complaining, and I complain, but it created a situation. Basically, bottom line, I complained to my brother that my rent was too expensive, and I was feeling lonely. So loneliness is one of the big issues, and I needed to find a new place to live as quickly as possible, and you know, And the next thing I knew, he and my financial director, who I feel like led me into the wrong thing, which is why I'm feeling this financial crunch, were both saying, well, you should explore Florida and find a cheaper place to live. And the next thing I know, I'm kind of pushed off the fence of feeling like my body just wanted to stay here. I could feel like, and suddenly I'm going to Florida on Tuesday for 10 days to explore if I would want to buy a really inexpensive mobile home, because you can get a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, double wide, porch near the beach with a yacht harbor across the street for $39,000. And but the main thing is my Sufi teacher is there, so that's the background. The feeling and need problem is I'm noticing myself feeling a lot of fear about my money's going to run out, a lot of fear about even having to go to the airport alone, fly alone, land alone after an all night, get a car alone. So somehow my wounded inner child is coming up and not feeling strong. I'm not feeling, I watch Rachel, my business partner, like she can just go anywhere, but she's 45 and gorgeous. I'm feeling this, so I would like empathy. I need to reclaim my power. I think it's fear of bombs, fear of terrorists is the background. And then fear of living alone. And in the end, I think I'm going to go there. And even though it's a warmer winter and sun and and I have some friends, and my Sufi teacher, Ibrahim Jaffe, from up here near where you live, is now bought a home in Tampa, and I have friends in Sarasota. It's all fun. I'm justifying I'll get a tan. I'll feel, but I think it's showing me that I actually do want to stay here near all these friends.
Okay, so I want to just, because we're getting, no, that's all right. You shared a lot, but I want us to, so are you wanting empathy or advice?
Both.
Okay. So we're not going to do advice today.
Okay, so empathy.
We're just going to do empathy. And that's why I cut you off, because you were beginning to go into your own story and solution. I want to stay. Do I want to go? So just stay with empathy. And I'll go first, because what stood out for me on a feeling level was the word lonely. That's what I felt the most.
And the fear of, can I take care of myself? Right. All the way.
Yeah. So, fear
and money. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Scott. I mean, is it okay that I'm responding, or should I just be quiet to receive?
Well,
probably be quiet to receive.
To receive. Because what happens is, of course, you're wanting to be heard. And so if there's something that I'm really missing, or when Debbie or Daniel tries, but just know that to receive, we do need to be
quiet. I really need, it's just been like so intense.
Yeah. So I just invite you to really receive.
Come to the end of a movie, and the end of a long-term companionship, and where I to survive, I have to create a new kind of relationship. one that's way more supports my needs and feelings. And to survive, I need to live with at least one friend. I'm a total extrovert people person. I need to live with at least one other friend.
Yeah.
I'm not meant to live alone.
Yeah. So I'm really hearing that you are declaring you want a healthy partnership, and that you really need to live with at least one person, and that you really need to meet your needs for companionship, connection, safety. That for you, when you're alone, you don't feel safe, and when you're with somebody, you feel much more safe. Is that accurate?
That is 100% accurate. And thrown into that is I need to put out the shingle and start really working, really be a healthy lifestyle coach and compassionate communications coach. I need to be generating income.
Okay, thank you. So that's again another topic. So there's a lot of things you've shared. So I would like to ask you, as much as you feel the impulse to say, and this and that, take a breath and take in the quality of care that we're offering. Okay, and I want to give Debbie Garcia a chance to give you some empathy. And I just invite you now, notice the mind is going to want to jump in and add this and add that. But this is your time to practice receiving, to practice just receiving the beautiful love and care of Debbie Garcia.
Good morning, Deb.
Good morning.
Well, first, it's beautiful to be here with you. And I heard a lot of what you were saying. And I felt that what you were also expressing was just feeling like you're giving away your power somewhere. And that you're not being true to your own authentic truth. And in your alone time, rather than your lonely time, but I do understand lonely too, your monkey mind is going ape shit and it's driving you crazy. And you needed someone to hear you, for God's sake. I'm not going crazy. I just don't think this is what I want. Oh, right. And I love that. And I love that you know so much about who you are, where you are, and just the awareness of the beauty of what you're feeling right now, because you're not alone in it. I heard you say, I don't want to live by myself. That's not my favorite space. I love that. You know everything you don't want. And my heart is there with you because I understand this. So we'll just hold that space for you and know that you're so heard and seen, especially on this losing your power thing. I can't step in and give you any advice right now, but all I got to tell you is I understand how you feel because I've been in that space so many different times. So, and I'm still trying to feel 100%, you guys, so I'm going to leave it at that right now, all right? I'm not quite there yet. I'm close. But you rock, girlfriend, and I'm grateful that we can share your heart with you and that you shared with us too.
Oh, that feels so good. Both of you, I mean, equally.
Yeah, and Daniel, I just saw your message, so it's totally okay. Deborah, at what point, when did you feel most connected? What did Debbie say that where you felt the most connected? Deborah, did you get my question?
Yeah, no, am I on me? Yeah. I felt, yeah, well, okay, just spontaneous. What's coming up is when she said, I really feel you, girlfriend. I get that because I get that Debbie and I are starting to have a very important connection. Like I'm getting a relationship with Debbie Garcia. I'm just getting angel chills everywhere. That there's some work we're going to do together, and there's a genuine Debbie Ray connection. So thank you, Scott, for being the incredible, vehicle that connects us. And that I know she's actually working on the, accepting your singleness and aloneness to get to the next level. And that's what I'm having to do. I know it's also a phase of life. Just, certain fears. But I felt connected. I felt connected because she did reflection.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when she reflected back, how she could feel it with you, that's when you felt most connected.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I thought you did a beautiful, beautiful job, Debbie. Beautiful job. Thank you. All right. Daniel's at the airport and he is boarding his plane, so he's not able to really participate.
Scott, if it'd be all right, I want to adjust one more thing to Deb.
Of course, please. Yeah.
Because because it kind of came up for me just now. I heard you say that so-and-so is your business partner, and she's hot and 45 and blah, blah, and then you left away from there. And right in that space, I felt this pain of constriction where we don't want to deal with the fact we're fucking over 50 and we are getting older, you guys. There's no bullshit around that. But I saw you go, I'm not going to go. I want to just meet you right here together. I think we all three of us can embrace each other. But I want to promise you that part of you is the most beautiful. So
which part did
nothing...
The thing in the middle that you're...
The part that you are, your youth, that you're youthful and beautiful, that there isn't anyone else, just because somebody's younger or whatever, you have all of your extraordinary qualities now. But I just wanted you to know, I heard you with that comparison with somebody else. And I know how it feels when I compare myself to younger people who've got it going, who I just don't have that energy anymore. And I get it. I just don't. My body doesn't look like it did when I was 30. Actually, that's good, because when I was 30, I lost 150 pounds. Let's go younger.
Whoa. Wow, that's amazing. Right now, I would like to lose 20 pounds, and I'm
holy shit
myself against my own 45. And I literally go, I claim that I'm 45 forever. I vibrate 45. I think 45, and I have the power to meet Rachel at this empowerment entrepreneurial seminar thing. But it is true that I know she's like, a bodybuilder at 45 and perfectly thin and perfectly gorgeous and perfectly everything. And I'm looking at my belly just going, how do I get rid of this thing? And wanting to be thinner and more beautiful, to be ready to receive my new mate, and also just to feel great myself in yoga and clothes and everything.
I completely get it. And I understand where you're at. I've been 300 pounds. I've been 125 pounds.
Wow.
And now I probably have an extra 15 that are on me. I get you. But is that going to change the dynamic of whomever coming in? Nah, because that person is coming in for that's the expression of who I am. Not the physical attributes of who I am. I'm going to wake up in the morning and look like shit. That's going to happen.
I trust that so much. And I'm seeing also my action. I've kind of held on to this old relationship because he's like a security blanket. He's really a friend. We have clearly established we are friends. And I need to be proactive to do action steps now, like to get on the dating sites, to welcome in new connections. And I realize I can't procrastinate it anymore. Thank you for.
Okay, so that's a totally never. We can talk about that later, like, because I know we were supposed to. Give me a couple more days, but yeah, we'll hang out. But we'll talk about that. I did hear you though, and so if anything you get out of this right now, that you're not alone.
Thank you.
Period.
Thank you. And I can also own, so now I'm feeling my empowered self coming back. And, you know, this empowered self is going to go to the airport and fly overnight on Spirit Airlines and get to Florida and rock it in Tampa and see my Sufi teacher and rock it in Sarasota and see old friends and do research and come back. And I'm going to live through it. And I affirm there will be no terrorist attack. You know, but thank you, because, you know, I've been going from waking up in the middle of the night terrified to I can be very clear and empowered.
In a moment, we're going to hear from Debbie Garcia and give you some empathy, Debbie. But
oh, yeah. Thank you.
This is something that I just sent to you, Deborah Haviland. And ironically, I posted this on my story today on Facebook.
Oh, I'll go put hearts on it.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So there it is. It's like, it's what we're talking about.
I like that one, Scott.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that.
Wow, that's amazing. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true. That's real love. Especially, look, we're all aging, you know. I mean,
seems to be part of
I get it. I go through it. Yeah.
Bunga bunga.
All right, it is Debbie Garcia's time now to receive some love and some empathy. Okay. Debbie,
All right, let me come up with something here.
Yeah.
I've been in bed for days, guys.
It could be that. It could be just how awful it feels to be sick.
It was feeling pretty gnarly. I actually had a situation come up where last night the owner of the ranch came up, and for whatever reason today he was really like disgruntled with Christopher, I know how much work Christopher's done here. It's enormous. This guy's MO in dealing with people has been to be explosive. He was literally, his birthday is like a day later than his dad's was. So they're both Tauruses. But yeah, he's got the same narcissistic, mean fucking streak shit coming out. And I've just been practicing the art of I don't have the strength in me right now to go deal with it yet. But there are some times when that right there is hard for me to practice the art of non-interference and understand there is something real for this guy going on right now. He cooled his heels when I came up, when I walked out, because it was like, I'm probably not the person you want to be screaming when I'm around, because I don't do that. I just don't, you know. Anybody that knows me, the only time you've ever heard me scream is when I had to stop an actual physical fight. Other than that, I'm not a lay into people kind of person. So I was grateful that he just kind of cooled his heels and shit. But pretty tough for me to see Christopher go through this when I have watched my son bust his living tail off. And then to use where Christopher was at the time, getting sober and whatnot, and like, this guy's, I was your rescuer, now you owe me for your whole life kind of attitude going. Not good. And I mean, that's just the real observation I have. So that just happened. And so when Christopher's walked back in a couple of times, you know, I've been, how's it going? He's out there just doing whatever it is that Scott wasn't happy about, which I had him write a list of everything he's done from the time we got here to now, and that's humongous. And I said, just keep that handy dandy, because you need that log, and we'll see how this goes, because I may have to deal with it at some point if I'm asked to, or if, you know. But anyway, so that's kind of what's happening right now. It's not anything major, other than some people are just mean and they suck. When they can be the greatest people in the world and really nice, but when they're mean, they suck.
So I'd like to go first, and then it'll be you two and Deborah. So I'm going to guess what your unmet needs are. And I want to preface by acknowledging the greatest love is a mother's love for their child, no matter how old the child may be. So of course there's mama bear wanting to protect her cub, right? And at the same time wanting to respect that he's a man now and not to overly involve yourself. But as I hear the story, I hear a lot of really unmet needs. And I'm actually going to call them unmet values, because these are values I know that you really have that are not being met by the way the owner of the ranch is. Your value for kindness. You have a really big value for kindness. You don't yell. You don't scream. You remain kind, even when there's differences. Your value for fairness. You know, your son's doing a lot. Your value for you, the thing you teach, gratitude. And so the longing for the owner of the ranch to be grateful for what Christopher's doing, as opposed to harshly criticizing. So just those values are so precious to you, to be kind, to be considerate, to be grateful, to be respectful. And those values aren't being met. And I just really want to acknowledge how much I respect you for having those values and how painful it is when those values aren't met, especially when it's somebody towards your own son, your little cubling.
Thank you. That's 100% on point. I love it when we dig deeper into values and core values, because that's definitely a core value of being kind to each other.
What's nice too, and as coaches, when we pivot it that way, we're taking it away from what you didn't get and acknowledging and appreciating who you are. You know, the beauty of Debbie Garcia, who is has such a high value for kindness, consideration, gratitude, respect. And so when those values aren't met, especially by somebody treating your son that way, of course it's going to be really painful. It's going to be really painful because those values are so precious to you.
Thank you for seeing that, and also in trying to guide Christopher in the best way for him to express himself without losing a shit. And I said, Scott's his normal MO is to get angry with people, and then there's a fight.
Right.
So let's see how we can do this without that being what it is. We know his protocol, so let's not feed into his protocol. Let's just not do that. And but thank you.
Beautiful.
I love that you were bringing those things up.
Yeah, and I'll conclude. I'll turn it over to you in a minute, Deborah, but I just want to acknowledge the balance of not wanting to be overly protective of your son, wanting to support him to learn new ways of dealing with conflict and dealing with when the values for fairness or appreciation aren't being met, and how important that is to you, and what a delicate balance of wanting to teach your son but not be too teachy, wanting to protect your son but not being overly protective, wanting to care for your son but not being overly caretaking. That's really hard as an adult woman with an adult son that still is your child. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I agree. I'm really grateful because I've been practicing these tools with Christopher for a couple years now. So even with all the resistance that was met, the fact is that they understand this language now.
Yeah.
Christopher gets this language. Yeah. Well, Scott, you've worked with Christopher too. I mean,
yeah, it's beautiful.
So I appreciate you.
Yeah. And if I could be helpful, if you and I and Christopher want to have a session where I can just kind of listen and give him some empathy and remind him of some tools, maybe hearing it from both of us would be valuable, and I'd be happy to gift you with that.
Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. I try not to do too much with you, Scott. I could keep Scott really busy all the time. Deb, I want to just take a second and say, Scott, do you realize Deb and I met each other at Bhakti Fest with Kathleen? for Catherine.
Really? Wow. Small world, all my friends. That's
And
very cool.
well, she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, I know you.
Wow.
Hi, Deb. Remember how I met you at Bhakti Fest?
Yes.
With Kathleen, yeah. And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, I know you.
Loved you.
She's like, I know you too. I'm like, I can't recall. Where is it? It
Well,
was pretty cool, Scott. I've met all your friends before. I haven't met Scott yet, but I've met all of his friends.
Oh, that's
But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Scott in person.
It was pretty rad, the house.
For Skype.
All right, Deborah, your chance to, we've got like 2 minutes left for you to give some empathy. I'm sorry that I took a little more time.
Gosh, I'm going on the, tail of a master. So I learned a lot. I am really seeing you as a master, Scott. Yeah. So I can echo, that I had to quickly figure out, I didn't totally know who Christopher was or Scott in your story. So I'm understanding that Christopher is your beloved son, and I don't know how old he is.
Yes, honey.
He's how old?
27.
27.
27.
And he lives there with you? Okay, and then Scott is the landlord, and Christopher's doing work for the landlord. Okay,
yeah.
So I empathize with you as the mother of Christopher, and that you're watching this landlord come in, and it sounds expressing anger and kind of being the bully, doing the domination thing, and that you're maintaining composure and holding the ground of okay, let's stay conscious here. We're going to somehow navigate this situation. And you're knowing that you're the one who has the skills and tools to hold the consciousness in this situation and model it for your son. So I just want to say that you can really, or I'm wondering if you are giving yourself, self-love, that you are able to do that you have the skills and the composure to really be the voice of wisdom, and that you're modeling for your son to stay out of trouble, because just fighting back would not work. It would probably create disaster. So
I love you. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that, and you're on point. You guys, I have a very perfectly human side of me that wants to go fuck his shit up right now. Let me just be real about that. My son tried to commit suicide for friggin' July and was on heroin. I'm very grateful for this opportunity for my son, but what the fuck? If you're here, if you did this to help, why would, who does that? Who steps in and rocks all of the foundation from underneath that? So that part of me, that's a very human, that's some gut response there now. But my compassionate heart and my compassionate brain knows there's a lot more going on that meets the eye.
Right. And so you're maintaining.
And, it's not personal, dude. It's like, that is like the number one, things in life are not personal. It's not personal. It's like one of the biggest things that I've ever experienced ever, is that it's not that, you know what I'm
No, Deborah, we can't.
talking about? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to acknowledge you, Debbie, that you're doing a great job. Even though people have come back into the space, I'll just say you're doing a great job of maintaining composure and using the skills you've learned here to manage that situation.
Yeah. Good job. Thank you, Debbie. Welcome back, Anuprabha. Did you guys have enough time for everybody to?
Yes, thank you. I saw the 59 seconds and I pressed something. I pressed the wrong thing. I didn't mean to kind of come back immediately. I thought we had 5 because I was like, we were sharing. So I could have used that. We could have used that extra minute.
Yeah.
Maybe extra 3 minutes we could have used. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah. But it was beautiful. I thank you. We had beautiful sisterhood in ours, and it was just so perfect, I think, for all what we needed, all of us. And it was beautiful to be with women in my group. Yeah.
Good. Nice. Adrian, how'd things go with your pod?
I mean, it felt great. Yeah, it felt really connected. It felt sweet. I felt like a lot of good practice happened. We could have used probably 6 more minutes. Aaron could have used some more time. I ended up doing some empathy work, so it was harder for me to manage time because I was like in my own teary process.
Yeah.
It felt really helpful for me. Yeah, it felt really helpful for me.
Good.
It seemed like it was a good practice session.
Good. And Laura, how was the two couples pod? How did things go for all of you?
You know, everything was amazing. We all seemed to do like the one of the 3 empathies, and the only thing is that at the very end is we didn't get to give Rob a lot of empathy because we got cut off. But other than that, I think it went really, really well.
That's all right. I have her.
you live with the queen of empathy, so
definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm learning a lot from her because it's really difficult for me as a double Gemini to fix her. To actually stay out of fixer.
Beautiful. I can understand that. Anuprabha, I saw you raising your hand. So Anuprabha and then Mandy.
Okay, just on a housekeeping, like how we presented this was really well done, I thought. I think by the time the question, giving each different types of empathy, each person responding, hearing, it was a really this is a beautiful way to do it. I'd love to do this again, Scott, just to say, yeah.
Well, we will. We're going to, on Wednesday night, we're going to continue practicing empathy. So Wednesday night will be a continuation of this. So everybody gets to do more practice of giving and receiving empathy. And again, we'll break up into small pods. Is 4 a good number? Was that a pretty good number for everybody?
Yeah.
That way it's intimate, but yet, sometimes 3 can be a little awkward. So that's why I thought 4.
Yeah.
Mandy, you wanted to share something.
Yeah, I really appreciated our group, and this has been a really emotional week for me between mourning my sister and almost breaking up, and like just having that container. I've had so much pain in my heart these last few days. It's like just been this ache, and having that ability and container to release and share some of my emotion has really lifted some of that pain off of my chest. So thank you.
Let's just take a minute, and what a beautiful expression of the healing power of empathy. And that's what this class is called, the healing power of empathy. So thank you, Mandy, for just giving us that acknowledgement. Big twinkles from Mandy.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to open it up our last few minutes. Anything that was a challenge for anybody? Anything that you learned? Anything that was just a big, beautiful aha? I'd love to hear from any and all of you. Anybody want to share a thought, a question, a reflection? Mimi and then Deborah.
Thank you, Scott. I really loved the group that we were in. And one of the pieces that I'm really resonating with is asking, did I get that right? Like, just making certain that I'm understanding exactly what it is. And the group really reflected that back. And I'm just wanting to make sure that I can clarify this and can really get to what it is that you'd like empathy for. And I think that was really helpful for me, because then it gets me into alignment of a place of really what are my requests, even in empathy. So that was really powerful. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mimi.
Yeah, thanks.
Deborah.
I think I noticed being able to really show that I understood, to ask any questions I needed to ask so that I really understood accurately, and then to give meaning and understanding to the fact that this person is going through this lesson, really, like all these and this experience, like to accept their value in how they are managing it.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to share? Debbie?
I loved it because, Scott, you were able to see my value for kindness not being met. And I loved how when you were showing empathy with me, you were able to pick up on things I hadn't actually looked at yet. Both you and Deb did that. I loved being able to offer the parts of my heart to Deborah that where she was hurting, and I was able to meet her there with experience and with a true compassionate understanding. I get it. So it was a really awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll riff for a moment on what Debbie Garcia was just sharing. A wonderful practice is when somebody is wanting empathy for a situation where somebody else did something that was offensive. And what I've learned how to do is to guess which value. So in this case, I won't say much, but Debbie Garcia lives with her son, and the landlord came and was very aggressive and cruel towards the son. Rather than focusing on what the landlord did that was funky, I imagined which of Debbie's values weren't met. Her value for kindness, her value for consideration, her value for respect, her value for gratitude, that the landlord's not being grateful for all that her son's doing. And that's a wonderful way to pivot. Remember we were talking about like not going into the pain, but instead bringing in the love. When we are really pissed off with somebody else, it's because they're not meeting our values. And so if we shift into focusing on the beauty of those values and how important those values are, it takes it off what somebody did wrong and puts it on what's beautiful about you, right? So instead of it going on and on about the landlord's a dick, we're able to pivot into how awesome Debbie's values for kindness, consideration, respect, and appreciation are. And that's a wonderful way to pivot out. Does it make sense to everybody? So I guess we could say it's another form of empathy. It's a whole practice that we will do a class on transforming pain into gratitude. It's an advanced practice, and we will do that as part of this group some Saturday. Adrian, did I see that you want to say something? No? Okay. You were unmuted, so I wasn't sure. Mimi.
I have a question. Do you have a list of values?
I do. So I will send the list of values. Yeah, I'll pop it into the Love Coach Academy feed, the Facebook feed. There's actually two things. There'll be the list of universal human needs, and then there's the list of virtues and character strengths, and I'll post both of those.
Okay, great. Can I get that separately, please?
Sent to you separately.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, text me. You guys, anytime you want me to send something to you personally, just send me a message and let me know if you want me to email it or Facebook message it. And Laura, you are up.
So I just shared with the class, with our group, that I thought last night Rob and I were talking about some hard situation, but I just realized this deeper feeling of that all human beings, we all have our own set of limitations. We all have this, whatever it feels like this constriction thing is in our lives, whether it's our relationships, our work, our money, or our family. And I just know that the only thing that helps us really come up with our own solutions, we never really need anyone to do anything for us, but find a way to get empathy, because that's where spirit comes in and the light comes in, and we can find our own solutions. And it is really, really hard, but I do think it's the thing that unhooks those limitations. where the universe really comes in to help us with those solutions. I just wanted to share that.
I love that. I mean, let's just all ruminate on the beauty of that. Actually, it's kind of a perfect thing to end on. Again, the healing power of empathy. And so when we transcend the monkey mind, and the monkey mind is judging myself, judging you, judging everything else, or trying to fix it, trying to solve it, but we're still in the monkey mind, limited human part of it. When we receive enough empathy, which, as Adrian pointed out, is also love, it's also compassion, then it lifts us to that higher state, right? And, from a biological standpoint, we're going from the reptile brain to the frontal lobe. We're going from jackal to giraffe. We're going from being in the pit to being back into that centered place. And empathy is what brings us there. If we're lucky, we receive empathy from somebody else. Sometimes we have to give the empathy to ourselves. And it's absolutely a spiritual practice. It's a non-denominational spiritual practice. And that's why that's at the foundation of Compassionate Communication, Love Coach Academy, my teachings. So I want to acknowledge my mentor, Marshall Rosenberg, who taught me so much of this. And I want to acknowledge each and every one of you. I really am grateful for your presence in this class. I've had a hard week. This particular Thanksgiving, really, my wife died on November 28th. And this year, November 28th, happened to be Thanksgiving itself. And it's also the first Thanksgiving that I'm single in 7 years. And I wasn't feeling very social, and I spent most last couple of days by myself, and I've been in a very reflective, at times contracted place. And I knew that I'd feel awesome after the class because I love being with all of you and teaching and sharing and learning and practicing with fellow compassionate communicators. So thank you for each and every one of you being the awesome person that you are. Mandy, I see you holding your hand up.
I just want to thank you, Scott, for bringing all of your knowledge from all of your life experience and relationship experience, and just however you've come to this place of how you're able to be in such a state of wisdom, an eloquent way that you say and word things and share empathy. It's really been helpful, I think, to all of our lives and relationships in some way or another.
Oh, thank you. That feels good. That feels really good. And it's practice, you guys. Just practice. Practice with each other. Practice with yourself. Practice self-empathy every day. Practice, practice, practice. Adrian.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on something Mandy said. So appreciate you, Scott. I quote you often, and this notion that the meaning of life is to learn how to love yourself. And that is so deep and multifaceted, the various ways we can love ourselves. Yeah, and the more we can love ourselves in a non-prideful way, in a non-narcissistic way, but just to really love ourselves with that depth of compassion and empathy and forgiveness, the more we can love other people. And I so appreciate you and this work. Thank you so much.
Wow, that feels awesome. And remember that self-love, when it's like, okay, so how do we love ourselves without it being egotistical or narcissistic? Radical acceptance. Radical acceptance of exactly who you are in present time. Radical acceptance of any choice you've made that you regret. Radical acceptance. Your body is exactly what it is, whether you've got those extra pounds or the extra wrinkles or the extra lines. Radical acceptance is self-love, all right, at the highest level. And then as we learn to radically accept ourselves, which is usually the hardest thing to accept, then we grow the muscles that allow us to radically accept other people and other people in our life, other people in our world. So radical acceptance is self-love in action. That's the action of true self-love. Okay. I'm going to close on that. I know, Deborah, you wanted to say something, but I'm thank you, but I'm going to close with that because that's like my final message to the world. So God bless each and every one of you. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thanks,
Love
Scott.
you.
We love you.
See you on Wednesday night.
Okay.
No, we love you. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you all.